It's Tuesday, June 21st at 7:30, and this is a regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody. First order of business will be public comment. I haven't received any comments in the mail about anyone that wanted to speak, and we have no guests here in the audience. So I'm assuming there's no public comment. The first item on the agenda, number 3, will be the approval of the suspense list, and Kathy Larkins, our tax collector, is here to give us a walkthrough of that.
So good evening. Today I'm here asking your approval of the suspense list for Grand List 2017. Of the $7.3 million and 20,975 motor vehicle, supplemental motor vehicle, and personal property accounts originally billed, there remains $17,154.02 and 115 accounts uncollected. This amount is considered uncollectible, and therefore my request to be removed from the tax receivable on the town's books. Collection efforts on the suspended accounts will continue. As you see from the information provided, over $3,000 in previously suspended accounts was collected during the current fiscal year. Also, the amount I am requesting to be suspended is less than comparable municipalities of New Canaan, Ridgefield, and Westport. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Okay. Kathy, maybe just give us a refresher on the suspension of these accounts, kind of what it does to either the balance sheet or the collectibles, and sort of why we do this each year.
Okay, so I'm required by statute to transfer each year a certain amount of taxes to the suspense list. We do it here by Grand List, so that's why it's Grand List 2017. And what it does is it prevents our tax receivable becoming inflated by accounts that are uncollected. It keeps it a more conservative, more realistic amount.
Okay. So these are accounts that we're generally deeming sort of unlikely to be collected, but we're not stopping collecting them.
Exactly.
So we're sort of effectively moving them out of the receivables balance.
Exactly.
They're
Statutorily, we can pursue collection for the full 15 years.
Got it.
And all these accounts have been turned over to a collection agency that has additional measures to find people and pursue them that I don't have. So we do end up getting some collections through them. Also, you see it's a lot of motor vehicles. A lot of times it's people who have moved out of state, but their registration has a hold on it at DMV. If they ever decide to move back to Connecticut, they have to pay their taxes in order to register a car in town, in the state, anywhere in the state.
Okay. Any questions? I mean, it's broken down between motor vehicle, supplemental motor vehicle, and personal property, right? And does that mean that there is no uncollected residential real estate taxes?
There's very little.
Okay, but just none that's being moved to the suspense list?
Correct.
Okay. Well, if there are no questions, is there a motion to approve the movement of these 115 accounts totaling
17,000.
Sorry, 17,000 to the suspense list?
So moved.
Paul so moved. Rob seconded. All those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous, 5-0.
Thank you.
Kathy, thank you very much. Thank you for your service, and thank you for the job that you do. You do a great job collecting taxes. We're always so darn close to 100%. You do it with a smile, so I appreciate it.
I love it. So thank you.
Okay. Okay, the next item is going to be to discuss and take action on the resolution related to closed capital projects. So as many of you know, Jen's away on PTO, and so Eileen's going to walk us through the projects.
Yes.
The transfer.
There is a resolution here to rescind the unused authorization for bonded capital projects that have been completed. They total about $1,054,000. Somewhat a bit of housekeeping. We haven't done this in a couple of years. So these are the ones that can be taken off the authorized but unissued list in the financial statements.
Okay.
These projects are all complete?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, for example, the Interval Road drainage, that was $1.5 million of bond authorization, which we had received. So there's 14,300 that was unused. So that will effectively be given back and take down our authorized bonding accounts.
Correct.
The largest decrease is relative to the garage, the DPW garage, and
Yes, that one was.
yeah, that was a $6.3
under
million
budget.
appropriation, of which we're taking back, or I should say canceling about $540,000 of those authorizations.
The Holmes HVAC Board of Ed has confirmed they're not going to use that at this point.
Yeah, I believe that's been rolled forward into the HHR.
That's one of the major elements of the HHR
Right.
project, so yeah.
I think the Board of Ed did a good job in terms of not moving forward with a few projects that we had previously been approved on, and then also moving up some projects that they had on these schools, all to try to, bring it in and get some efficiencies out of the HHR project. So, I guess I would call for a motion to approve the resolution of the Board of Finance related to closed projects and close the 8 different projects listed on such resolution.
Jim,
David
sorry,
moved?
just really so the 1,054,268 goes back in the capital account or no?
No,
No.
these were bonds that were authorized,
Yep,
but we never actually issued the bonds because,
because the spending was lower than.
yeah, by the time we got to issue like the last set of bonds to kind of reimburse the general fund, if you will.
Yep,
So
for
it's
those
just,
projects.
it's canceling the appropriation
got it. Okay,
authorization.
thank you.
So regarding the motion, David moved, do I have a second? Rob? All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Point of order.
I know, I saw
Okay.
that, yeah. Okay. Dan pointed out here,
Paul originally.
Paul originally. We're going to go to number 4 on our agenda, which is a transfer related to the Parks and Rec budget related to $15,000 of pear tree, related to the pear tree improvement project. Pam Geary, she's not here tonight, but she put together a memo here. And this $15,000 is going to come out of our capital reserve fund, which is the Board of Finance's effectively contingency fund inside the reserve fund for capital non-recurring expenses. The $15,000 is going to cover part of the work that they've been doing to receive effectively permission from the state to move forward with a project at Pear Tree Point, which could involve fixing the boat ramp. I can attest to it's a difficult thing to do, to launch on right now. And possibly raising the parking lot. And this approval, which they are, if you read through the memo, they're relatively close to getting here, it'll last for 5 years. And this particular transfer of $15,000 is related to the consultant that they had work with them to work with the state to obtain this approval.
So this is the last $15,000 to finish the work?
Well, this is $15,000 to pay for about $9,000 of work that's already been incurred, where they effectively went over budget, and there's about $6,000 left.
Okay, so this is to actually get the certificate of permission.
Correct.
This isn't to do the work.
Correct. This is just working with the state to get permission to do it inside
Okay.
the,
So there'll be more money to actually do the work. This is permission to do the work.
correct. So-
Regrading the parking lot and basically
Correct.
changing the Boat ramp.
And
Yeah.
redoing the boat ramp.
There's a
Yeah.
subcommittee of the Park and Rec Commission that's evaluating the project at this time to decide how to move forward. I'm not sure exactly where that is.
Yeah, it sort of stopped, slowed down pre-COVID, as they were collecting sort of feedback, and then it just kind of paused during COVID. And the only thing that really continued, I think, over the past year or so was the somewhat tenuous work with the state to be able to get the permission to actually do work.
Yeah, because there's a lot of environmental stuff that they have to deal with to get that
Yeah.
done.
Right.
so.
So I think this is, again, this is just the permit to actually think about beginning to move forward, so, more to come. We should stay on top of this, so. This will be a $15,000 transfer from our capital reserve fund inside the reserve fund for capital non-recurring expenses to the Pear Tree improvement project. So, do I have a motion to approve? David approves, or David makes a
Moves.
motion? Rob seconds? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, approval of minutes. We have 4 different sets of minutes here.
Wait, do we not have the financial report?
Yeah, that's financial
Oh, we have a
report.
financial report.
No, sorry. Let's flip to the financial report, sorry about that.
Okay, the financial report. There are just a few items I wanted to draw your attention to and highlight. The first one being tax collections have now exceeded budget. It's over 100% there. Town clerk. It's starting to slow down a bit. It's still ahead, still higher than same time 2 years ago. But at 2.245 right now, and we budgeted 1.8 for next year. One other item is building permits. It's consistent with prior years. Redevelopment projects received through May are 292,000.
So there's another $87,000 for this month, and then our fiscal year ends in that budget. Do you think
Yes.
we're gonna get to that number, or are we gonna fall just shy of that number? We're
For which one?
21 days into a
Building
30-day month.
permits.
Building permits. We're under budget for building permits, and we have through the end of May, and I'm just asking, we've got 9 days left in the fiscal year.
So
Are we
we're
gonna
over
get
budget.
back to that?
I've
Number.
seen permits seem high this month. I
Okay.
don't know whether they qualify as redevelopment.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
I'd put it around 40,000 so far in June.
Got it. I'm sorry, the expected dollars from redevelopment, not the budget.
Okay, so we're over budget as a whole.
Right.
But within the subset of the big ones.
Yes.
Yes.
We're a little bit under. I think a lot of that, relates to one project that's not yet moving forward, so.
On the expense side, that's tracking as expected. Surpluses are primarily from vacancies, retirements, so those will be some have been filled by now, so it'll be a fleeting, it's not going to be an ongoing situation. That's all I have for expenditures. Unassigned fund balance. We changed the projection upward for the surplus by another 275,000 compared to what we were projecting back in April. And that's mostly from tax collections and building permit. And that is all I have of note.
What was the amount of that excess, the additional surplus? 200 and? sorry,
275.
275, thank you.
You know, looking at the sped excess cost grant,
Yeah.
Paul, it looks like there's 75% is what was collected in February.
Yeah. Well, that's normally how it pays out.
Yeah.
75% of your December 1st submission in the last week of February, and then the remaining in the last week of May.
And any,
And I think they had, I think I read they had 6 more students.
yeah.
Yeah, it says in the explanation here.
And what was the May payment? What did that top it up to? Like what percent of total submissions?
Well, you just take the 2,790,000 and divide by 4, and that'd be 25% of the number. And
No, but I meant in terms of like the reimbursement rate. It's not in the 80s?
I would have to find that out.
Okay. You know, Eileen, could you look into, you know, I'm just looking at the general fund,
Mhm.
like the Board of Finance contingency,
Yes.
we have 47,000. Like, is there anything that we're gonna need to, is that gonna be enough to deal with any sort of end of year?
There's nothing that
Shortfalls
I
or-
know of that's in the pipeline right
Okay.
now.
And it looks like we'll start next year with about 290,000 in our capital reserve.
Yes. And that includes the transfer you just approved tonight.
And if you all see there on page 19 of the PDF, the 35,000 that we originally deposited in under this new sort of capital reserve where we swept up a lot of the smaller capital reserves and created this one, there were only really 3 drawdowns in there. So I guess, Eileen, is the plan that in July 1, we would take money out of our capital reserve and sweep some of it into the admin capital reserve to get it back up to 35,000?
On July 1, yes, I would think that Jen will present that at a future meeting
Okay.
to reauthorize it.
Any other questions on the financials? Okay. Okay, well then, next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. The first meeting was for March 22nd. One of our budget work sessions. Does anyone have any comments on that?
No comments?
No.
Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion to approve the March 22nd, 2022 meeting minutes. David moved. Paul seconds. All those in favor? That's unanimous. So the next 7 meetings were for the subsequent meeting on March 29th, 2022. Again, that was primarily a budget work session. Any comments on that?
Only comment on that was, I was absent from that, so it doesn't, I don't know if there should be a line that says absent.
No, you weren't absent for this one. You presented the police budget, didn't you?
No, I was at the next one. I missed two.
The March 29th?
Yeah.
It says you presented the police budget in
Where?
the minutes. The March 22nd one, it says you were absent.
I'm not seeing that, Dan, on the 29th, unless I'm missing it. I presented.
Yeah, his name isn't in.
I presented. I presented the police on the 31st. That's the
Okay,
next set.
I went to the wrong one. Okay, oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, I scrolled through the wrong one.
All good.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the 29 minutes?
As amended,
As amended.
to reflect Rob's absence, right?
Yes. I don't know that we are actually. Yes. So Eileen, can you note that
Yes.
change? Okay. So approval of March 29th with noting that Rob was absent on that. Do I have a motion? David moves. Rob seconds. All those in favor? It's unanimous. The next set of minutes is for our regular meeting on March 31st, 2022. Everyone was here for that. Again, that was another primarily budget meeting. Any comments, changes, edits? Okay, entertain a motion to approve the March 31st minutes. Rob moves. David seconds. All those in favor? It's unanimous. And the last item was the April 5th minutes. Everybody was here for that. This is the day that we actually voted on the budget itself. Any comments on that?
None. Looks good.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. David moves. Rob seconds. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Next are special assignments and committees. Dave, you want to go first on the HHR?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, as you might imagine. We're expecting that the state grant application should be filed this week. The architects have been meeting with the principals and other people at the individual schools, verifying the ed specs and those types of things. The architect and the engineers will be going into the schools next week to start popping the ceilings and trying to verify that what's actually up there is reflected in the as existing drawings that they currently have. They also have so the laser scoping project for the outsides of the buildings is out for bid currently. The idea is that they laser scope the outside of the buildings. They can just upload that into the CAD system for the architects, and then when they design the expansions of the buildings, that helps the architect get all that stuff done. Next week, we think it's going to be next week. It could get pushed. We're going to have round 2 of the conceptual drawings for each of the projects. The architects, in their meetings with the administration, they've been meeting with the administration every Tuesday, and in that process, they also reviewed the designs of all the other architects as well, with the idea being that the best design idea isn't always necessarily theirs. So we should be reviewing that next set. The surveys have been done for all the schools, so that's great. Most important one being there is the survey for the Holmes property, the home school related to the Curtis property and whether or not it is usable in some form, shape, or fashion. And last but not least, the professional services contract with KG&D is just about finalized. There's a couple of things that are yet to be figured out. things like the possibility of an additional cutout on Hindley on the post road for Hindley. That wasn't in the initial bid, and possibility of using the Curtis property at Holmes was not in the initial bid because nobody knew if we could or not. So those things are getting ironed out currently, and everything's moving forward.
Is the short lane property there, is that,
That's called the Curtis property now, yeah. But yeah,
oh, is it?
yeah.
The short lane, isn't that short lane there?
No, David's right. Short Lane and Curtis.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
me, but, okay.
Yeah.
The Curtis was just the person that sold it, right?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the house that was landlocked.
Yeah, oh, I thought it was Culture, okay.
Yeah.
But, has the town turned that over to the Board of Ed, or does the town still maintain it?
No, the town still controls it at this point in time.
Yeah.
And they're evaluating to see if it can be used as part of the project or incorporated into the property in some useful manner, depending on topography. There's wetlands in there, there's a creek, there's other, stuff like that. And then if they were to decide that there's some portion or all of it that they'd like to incorporate into the design, then our committee has to go to the board of, the administration and the Board of Ed, see if they want to make the ask of the school, of the Board of Selectmen, to allow them to incorporate it into the design process. So we're still a little bit off from that.
Okay.
Oh, last one other thing is, we expect to have the what do they call it? Design specs by mid-September. So that'll be the next date where there would be a material numbers update, if you will, because the design specs should be significantly more accurate. And that'll also give us a benchmark for if we need to reassess where the design is headed to keep it on budget.
And what about with respect to the state grants? I know the cutoff date is the end of the year, right?
Cutoff date, no. Cutoff date to file the application is June 30th. We're expecting to file that this week.
Got it.
Yeah.
And will there be, so you filed this week, will I give enough time if there's any like typos or things like that to make sure it's?
Yeah, that should be plenty of time. It's basically, you file it by a computer and then you call them and they look at it and tell you if there's anything that needs to be modified. Yeah, I see my friend smiling down there. He probably knows more about this process than I do, so.
Having missed a signature on one document and having it kicked back for another month, yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Oxbridge?
Oxbridge, we met last week. Academic wing is 96% constructed. The projected construction costs are at $50.3 million versus $51.3 million. That's for the entire project. That's just construction-related costs. So that we still have about $1 million contingency, which I'm advised is really great shape for this stage of a project. And substantial completion of the academic wing is scheduled by June 30th. We had a little bit of a delay in furniture arriving, and the health inspector wanted to make sure the furniture was in place so that he could examine egress and all those kinds of things that furniture might impede or whatever. But everything seems to be still on track, and teachers and students should have a great new building to move into in the fall.
Did I see some graffiti pop up on the old building?
They had there was some back and forth, but the students were given certain materials, biodegradable materials, to have a graffiti party on the old building before it gets demolished. So they had a little fun with that.
I saw some pictures.
And there were, I guess, some alumni participated. I don't think my kids participated, but I think some younger alumni participated as well. So
Sounds like fun.
yeah.
Great.
And the other thing is that there's an I-beam going into the new building where all the graduating fifth graders had an opportunity to sign. So their names will forever be, well, as long as that building stands, they'll be part of it. That's it from Oxbridge.
Paul, anything on pension or?
Next meeting is in July.
Okay. Technology?
I was going to start, nothing on audit that we've heard.
Yeah.
And on technology, we were canceled last week and expect it to be rescheduled for sometime in July.
Okay.
So no update.
On the technology side, I saw a memo from Dr. Adley and Mr. Rudel. They've given a bunch of the iPads, that they're doing away with this sort of one-on-one device, or it's not turning to bring your own device, and they've given a bunch to the senior center to use as part of the take-home program.
Awesome.
And I think they're giving some to some of the fire departments and sort of other groups in town that need them, and then I think they're going to auction them off, depending on like the grade of them, like A, B, C, or whatever, to different groups and or parents in town. So
Great.
as you know, last week I was appointed as the board representative for the bonding. Nothing really new there. We'll certainly watching the markets closely in terms of, so we'll get ready to go, pending the outcome of the RTM's vote. Good news is the short end of the market is performing much better than the long end, and so today, given that if the plan is still to go forward with a sort of short 1-year callable ban, it's probably the most efficient part of the muni market right now. So I sent you all around an email about prepping for, there's a mandatory meeting that needs to take place between the Board of Finance and the Board of Ed. No more than 30 days before they commence actual negotiations for the teacher's next salary agreement, which just has traditionally been 3 years, but I think in a few years it's only 2 years. So I've pulled together, I think I've received from almost all of you your availability for a series, I think 12 dates. I'm going to give those to Dr. Adley and see how that meshes up with their schedule. There was some discussion about whether we might try to time that meeting with the Board of Ed's retreat. My suggestion was that I didn't necessarily think for something of this important, they should be doing that after they've had an 8 or 9 hour all-day meeting. So it sounds like between all the dates that people have come back with, there's at least 6 or 7 dates that were all available. So I'll send those across. In terms of other things, is kind of moving into chairman's remarks, I would say there's a couple meetings. There are 4 meetings, committee meetings and or district meetings coming up over the next couple days related to Great Island. Tomorrow night, Public Works is holding an in-person meeting in Town Hall at 7 o'clock for that committee, which is assigned to the vote. And then F&B was originally supposed to have their meeting on Monday, and it got moved to tomorrow night, and that'll be at 7:30. It's a virtual only meeting. I've asked Jack as to whether if he's going to prepare any materials to share them with me, and I'll pass them around as I get them from them. And then tomorrow night, and then Thursday night, there's a District 2 and 4 caucus at 7 o'clock, and there's a PZ&H committee meeting at 8 o'clock. The District 2 and 4 caucus is in person in the auditorium, and PZ&H is going to be on GoToMeeting virtually. So,
Do you know if there'll be, in addition to discussion, if that will have any informal vote?
I do know, I think F&B plans to vote tomorrow night. I think Public Works plans to vote tomorrow night, and PZ&H plans to vote on Thursday.
Okay.
I think so far the only vote was Parks and Rec last week, and I think there were 10 in favor, 10 voted in favor, and 4 were members, I believe, of either District 2 or 4 and wanted to wait until they could hear from their residents. So no one voted against it. And basically, the only, I think the only RTM meeting that, committee that has voted. So I think that's really it. Any other business? Well, without that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Rob moves, David seconds. I'll just make the point that Jen has probably missed our shortest meeting in about 6
Ever.
months while she's on
Yeah, thank
vacation.
you.
She'll be sad.
Yep, all those in favor of adjourning? It's unanimous.
Make sure you pass that along to us.
Yes.
I will.